Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with our series, Dumbfounding Definitions, Dizzying Distinctions, and Diabolical Doctrines, a series sorting through some of the jargon of philosophy. This video we're going to be looking at the question, what is Transcendentalism? Now, there are two positions in philosophy broadly known as Transcendentalism, a general position and a specific position known as New England Transcendentalism or American Transcendentalism. In this video, we're just going to cover the general Transcendentalist position. In a future video, we're going to look at New England Transcendentalism or American Transcendentalism. So stay tuned for that if that is what you are looking for, because often American Transcendentalism is just called Transcendentalism. Note that this position is also distinct from transcendental arguments, often associated with Immanuel Kant, that we covered in a previous video. So check out that video if you're looking for transcendental arguments. But with that out of the way, broadly, Transcendentalism is the belief in entities that transcend sense experience. In other words, things which in principle cannot be experienced by the senses. While there is general agreement on this kind of broad definition of what Transcendentalism is, there is some disagreement as to which entities can be classified as transcendental. So you may disagree as to whether or not someone's a transcendentalist, not because you disagree about the definition of transcendentalism, but rather because you disagree as to whether or not the entities that they believe in are in fact transcendental. Let's take a look. So, one thing that is often offered up as a entity that would, if anything's going to be considered transcendental, is God, or a range of deities. Because deities, while in some religions are things that you can sense and experience, in other religions are things that are not accessible to sense experience. So deities are often offered up as an example of something that someone might believe exists without sense experience of it, or which in principle cannot give you sense experience of it. If you believe that at least one God exists, but it's impossible to see, hear, touch, or smell them, then you're a transcendentalist about gods. However, if you believe in things like religious experience, that people are able to see or hear your gods, whether they're prophets or religious leaders, you're not really a transcendentalist about gods, because you do think that they can be experienced. You just perhaps haven't experienced them yourself. So there's that important distinction. But if you do think that a god or multiple gods are the kinds of things that you can't have sense experience of, you just need to have faith that they exist, you might be a transcendentalist about them. Now, Plato's forms are a relatively non-controversial transcendental entity. They're perfect, abstract, unchangeable concepts which are outside of our time and space. Therefore, they can't be experienced directly, so belief in the forms is a kind of transcendentalism. Another example of this might be David Lewis's beliefs about modal worlds, that possible worlds are these things that are actual, physical, real worlds. It's a belief called modal realism, that are out there but that we can never experience, see, touch, or get to. Those might be things that you might be considered a transcendentalist about because you can't ever experience them, but you might believe they exist. So, some have even argued that most objects in the physical world are actually transcendental, as we do not really have sense experience of those objects. Rather, we interact with misleading appearances, which are often very distinct from the objects, and may lead us to believe there is an object there when there is not. Under this view, appearances are not transcendental, but objects are. So, in this case, it's not actually the case that you are seeing a globe across the room. Rather, you're seeing a circular-shaped appearance that's appearing towards your eye that your brain is then interpreting to be a sphere on the other side of the room. The appearance is what you have the direct experience of. The object itself, you have kind of an intermediated experience of. And so your belief in that object is not because you have a direct sense experience of it, but rather because you are a transcendentalist about the physical world. Philosophers of science have claimed that some subatomic particles actually do fit into this category, as scientists do not observe them, merely their impacts on the world around them. However, there may be a question of whether these particles are necessarily transcendent, as we may develop ways to observe them directly in the future. It's simply a limitation to our current scientific abilities that we can't observe them right now. Transcendentalists now face a challenge of demonstrating why a particular sense experience provides justification for a belief in something which cannot be observed. So, in virtue of what do you believe that something exists which you don't have any sense experience of? How do you have some sense experience in the world and come to believe that something that can't be experienced does exist? Given that the object itself cannot be observed, we are underdetermined as to what the actual underlying cause of our sense experience is. If you have something out there which can't be directly observed, whether it's God or an object across the room that you're only observing through intermediating experiences, it seems that you're underdetermined as to what the actual underlying cause of that sense experience is. It could be that there's a globe across the room that's causing your experience. It could be that it's an optical illusion and it's actually a flat plane, and it could be that you're simply dreaming and it's your subconscious that's causing you to be faced with an appearance of a globe and there's no globe at all. Skeptics use such concerns to doubt the existence of all range of objects, as we do not experience them directly, and there's no way for us to determine if that sense experience is being caused by an object or by a simulation of some kind. So, the case that some people say that, well, the physical world, you have to be a transcendentalist about that, skeptics say, well, yeah, and you shouldn't be a transcendentalist, so you should probably be a skeptic. What do you think? Do you think that transcendental objects exist? What would you define as a transcendental object? Give me an example. And how do you justify belief in those objects without any direct sense experience of them? Leave your answers in the comments below. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org, and stay skeptical, everybody.